Welcome to the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube. This is our Awakening Together weekly gathering. Each and every week we have a different minister who speaks. If you'd like to attend our services live, please visit our website awakening-together.org. Click on Online Sanctuary on the main menu. Then, How to Enter the Sanctuary. Our services are held Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and happy spring, whatever today is. Happy spring. It's good to see you all. As you know, we are here for our weekly gathering, and today's gathering is called Preparing to Awaken. Thank you, Sina. So it's good to see you all this morning. I'm very happy that you're here. As I mentioned, today's weekly gathering is called Preparing to Awaken. And I selected a statement of purpose, which comes from our core values. The statement of purpose is, we accept one true self, which is one presence or being, non-dual, without beginning or end, and absolutely changeless. We live this value by practicing letting go of the belief in the individual self as who we are. And I picked that core value because, especially if you listen to that last sentence, it's really talking about preparing to awaken. We live this value by practicing letting go of the belief in the individual self as who we are. So why don't we go into a prayer? First, I want to say thank you. I want to say a sincere thank you for Peace Pilgrim. The song said that she touched the heart and changed the lives of those who met her. I didn't meet her. And yet she clearly touched my heart and changed my life. It moved in a direction that I would never have imagined, never have made up for myself. And I couldn't be more grateful. And I can see that through me, many others have been touched. And that's only one person that she touched. I feel to be grateful right now for everyone who is sincere, as she was sincere. Because when we see that sincerity in another, if there's an ounce of sincerity in us, it awakens. Sincerity and purity, truth, these are very important words to me, and they're all things that she demonstrated in her way of being. I'm grateful for everyone who lights a spark in another. And I'm grateful for everyone who sincerely follows the spark that has been lit in them. What a magnificent plan of awakening. So thank you, and amen. So now, as I said, we're going back to the basics today. We're going back to some of the first words I ever read that lit the fire in me. This is from the beginning of her book. It's called The Preparations. And Joe has offered to read today. So Joe, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Regina. This is from Peace Pilgrim, Her Life and Work in Her Own Words, titled Preparations. I would like to mention some preparations that were required of me. The first preparation is to take a right attitude toward life. This means stop being an escapist. Stop being a surface liver who stays right in the froth of the surface. There are millions of these people, and they never find anything really worthwhile. Be willing to face life squarely and get down beneath the surface of life, where the verities and realities are to be found. That's what we are doing here now. There's the whole matter of having a meaningful attitude toward the problems that life may set before you. If only you could see the whole picture. If you knew the whole story, you would realize that no problem ever comes to you that does not have a purpose in your life, that cannot contribute to your inner growth. When you perceive this, you will recognize that problems are opportunities in disguise. If you did not face problems, you would just drift through life. It is through solving problems in accordance with the highest light we have that inner growth is attained. Now, collective problems must be solved by us collectively, and no one ever finds inner peace who avoids doing his or her share in the solving of collective problems, like world disarmament and world peace. So let us think about these problems together and talk about them together, and collectively work toward their solutions. The second preparation has to do with bringing our lives into harmony with the laws that govern this universe. Created are not only the worlds and the beings, but also the laws that govern them. Applying both in the physical realm and in the psychological realm, these laws govern human conduct. Insofar as we are able to understand and bring our lives into harmony with these laws, our lives will be in harmony. Insofar as we disobey these laws, we create difficulties for ourselves by our disobedience. We are our own worst enemies. If we are out of harmony through ignorance, we suffer somewhat. But if we know better and are still out of harmony, then we suffer a great deal. Suffering pushes us toward obedience. I recognize that there are some well-known, little understood, and seldom practiced laws that we must live by if we wish to find peace within or without. Included are the laws that evil can only be overcome by good, that only good means can attain a good end, that those who do unloving things hurt themselves spiritually. These laws are the same for all human beings and must be obeyed before harmony can prevail. So I got busy on a very interesting project. This was to live all the good things I believed in. I did not confuse myself by trying to take them all at once, but rather if I was doing something that I knew I shouldn't be doing, I stopped doing it, and I always made a quick relinquishment. That's the easy way. Tapering off is long and hard. And if I was not doing something that I knew I should be doing, I got busy on that. It took the living quite a while to catch up with the believing, but of course it can. And now if I believe something, I live it. Otherwise, it would be perfectly meaningless. As I lived according to the highest light I had, I discovered that other light was given, that I opened myself to receiving more light as I lived the light I had. There's a third preparation that has to do with something which is unique for every human life, because every one of us has a special place in the life pattern, and no two people have exactly the same part to play in God's plan. There is a guidance which comes from within to all who will listen. Through this guidance, each one will feel drawn to some part in the scheme of things. God's laws can be known from within, but they can also be learned from without, as they have been spoken of by all great religious teachers. God's guidance can only be known from within. We must remain open to God's guidance. God never guides us to break divine law, and if such a negative guidance comes to us, we can be sure it is not from God. It is up to us to keep our lives steadfastly in harmony with divine law, which is the same for all of us. Only insofar as we remain in harmony with divine law do good things come to us. When you come into this world, your jobs and the divine plan are there. They just need to be realized and lived. If you do not yet know where you fit, I suggest you try seeking it in receptive silence. I used to walk amid the beauties of nature, just receptive and silent, and wonderful insights would come to me. You begin to do your part in the life pattern by doing all of the good things you feel motivated toward, even though they are just little good things at first. You give these priority in your life over all the superficial things that customarily clutter human lives. Every morning I thought of God and thought of things I might do that day to be of service to God's children. I looked at every situation I came into to see if there was anything I could do there to be of service. I did as many good things as I could each day, not forgetting the importance of a pleasant word and a cheery smile. I prayed about things that seemed too big for me to handle, and right prayer motivates to right action. I was filled with a runaway enthusiasm to help others. And one could argue that when I solved so many problems for others, I was depriving them of the spiritual growth problem-solving brings. I soon realized I had to leave some good works for others to do and be blessed by. In the beginning, I helped people in simple ways with errands, gardening projects, and by reading to them. I spent some time in the private homes of the elderly and the recuperating ill, assisting them to overcome their various ailments. I worked with troubled teenagers, the psychologically disturbed. My motives were pure, and much of my work did have a positive and good effect. I used what I call spiritual therapy. I found all the good things that those I worked with wanted to do, and I helped them to do those things. There were some who became too attached to me, and I had to work on breaking the attachment. My lack of expertise was more than offset by the love I extended to others. When love fills your life, all limitations are gone. The medicine this sick world needs so badly is love. I also did some volunteer work for the American Friends Service Committee, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and the Fellowship of Reconciliation over a period of at least 10 years off and on. There are those who know and do not do. This is very sad. In this materialistic age, we have such a false criterion by which to measure success. We measure it in terms of dollars, in terms of material things. But happiness and inner peace do not lie in that direction. If you know but do not do, you are a very unhappy person indeed. There is a fourth preparation. It is the simplification of life, to bring inner and outer well-being, psychological and material well-being, into harmony in your life. This was made very easy for me. Just after I dedicated my life to service, I felt that I could no longer accept more than I need, while others in the world have less than they need. This moved me to bring my life down to need level. I thought it would be difficult. I thought it would entail a great many hardships, but I was quite wrong. Instead of hardships, I found a wonderful sense of peace and joy, and a conviction that unnecessary possessions are only unnecessary burdens. During this period, I was able to meet my expenses on $10 a week, dividing my budget into two categories. I allocated $6.50 for food and incidentals, and $3.50 for lodging. Now, I do not mean that needs are all the same. Your needs may be much greater than mine. For instance, if you have a family, you would need the stability of a family center for your children. But I do mean that anything beyond need, and need sometimes includes things both physical needs, and needs sometimes include things beyond physical needs too. Anything beyond need tends to become burdensome. If you have it, you have to take care of it. There is a great freedom and simplicity of living. And after I began to feel this, I found harmony in my life between inner and outer well-being. There is a great deal to be said about such harmony, not only for an individual life, but also for the life of a society. It's because as a world, we have gotten ourselves so far out of harmony, so way off on the material side, that when we discover something like nuclear energy, we are still capable of putting it into a bomb and using it to kill people. This is because our inner well-being lags so far behind our outer well-being. The valid research for the future is on the inner side, on the spiritual side, so that we will be able to bring these two into balance, and so that we will know how to use well the outer well-being we already have. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I always say the hardest part of giving the weekly gathering is finding a reader. So I'm always so happy when a reader says yes. I'm like, yay, that part's done. That was the hard part. So it's good to be with y'all. As I mentioned, Peace Pilgrim really was my inspiration. And just recently I picked up her book and looked at it again and thought, you know what, this is what I want to do for the weekly gathering. And the reason was a little different. It was different than I would have given consciously when I read this book the first time. It occurred to me, the name of this section in her book is Preparations. And it occurred to me that anything that we feel really confident is coming in our life, we prepare for it. Like when we were in school and the teacher said there's going to be a test on Friday, we felt pretty confident there was going to be a test on Friday. And at least most of us prepared for it, right? Maybe later in life, someone proposed to you or you proposed to someone and you knew that there was a wedding coming and you prepared for that. And then maybe later there was a pregnancy and you knew that there was a baby coming and you prepared for that, right? And some of us were at the age now where our parents began to die or did die, and we knew there was a funeral coming, and we prepared for that. So it occurred to me that when there's something coming that's really different than our everyday life, you could call it a change, you could call it a big event, we prepare for it. So it occurred to me that if we aren't really focusing ourselves on preparing for awakening, it's probably because of an unconscious thought that it's not really coming, right? Like if we knew that awakening was coming, like that test on Friday, right? Or that wedding day or that first child, wouldn't we prepare for it? I mean, isn't it at least as big as those events, if not bigger? So it occurred to me also then the flip side is also true, that if we are genuinely preparing for awakening, it means we have that confidence that it's coming. And if you know anything about spiritual law, the lack of confidence that there's such a thing as awakening, even if it's unconscious, or the confidence that there is awakening and it is coming in this lifetime, alone could be the power that manifests or does not manifest the awakening. So it occurred to me that that confidence to prepare for awakening the same way we've prepared for other important events in our life that we knew were coming, right, is really critically important. It's a part of being in harmony with that divine law, as Peace Pilgrim talked about. So that made me look at these 4 preparations a little differently. And so I thought I would like to go back and look at them with you. The first one is what she called a right attitude toward life. A right attitude toward life. And I can tell you that this is a preparation that I adopted immediately. I mean, immediately after that experience on the Disney cruise, when the desire came down over me to be useful for the rest of my life. I knew then that the rest of my life had to do with my awakening. Like there was nothing in my life that could have a different purpose. And, and at that time, of course, I still had a corporate job. I was a single mom, raising a daughter. She was around 7 at the time, I think. So I could think that going to work was about making money, making my boss happy, whatever, proving to everybody how smart I was as I successfully complete these projects, And I could have thought that raising my daughter was about, raising a daughter. And also about looking like a good mother because I raised a good daughter who does what everybody thinks a good daughter should do. But what I realized was that everything was about one thing: awakening. And so as challenges came up at work, they were no longer work challenges, although they still had to be resolved in the work environment. Every work challenge became about my awakening, about something within me that I needed to see, right? Something within me that needed to be let go, some spiritual truth that I needed to realize. And raising my daughter became primarily about learning how to follow guidance. I had learned to be a parent by being a child, right? However your parent parents you, that's how most of us learn to be a parent. You learn to be a parent by being a child. Which means we don't really know how to be parents at all. Think about that. I mean, you were learning to be a parent when you were 3. How competent do you think you really were to interpret and learn properly? Right? So it really means we don't know how to be parents. So for me, being a parent was primarily about learning to follow guidance in all things, right? And, when my daughter is, 12 years old and getting rebellious and saying the mean things to me that a 12-year-old daughter might say, instead of reacting from my conditioning that I learned when I was a child, it was about realizing that my conditioning was wrong and feeling within for the guidance of what I was to say or what I was to do in that moment. So the right attitude toward life is really understanding that everything in life has only one purpose. It is your preparation for awakening. The way Ramana Maharshi would word it is that life is your guru. And when we don't see everything in life as our preparation for awakening, we see raising a child is about raising a child, and getting a project done at work is about getting a project done at work, right? I think in that moment, the belief that is being nurtured is the belief that I call the truth is not true. The world is true, and my worthiness is based on how well or how poorly I succeed in the world. If I don't raise this trophy kid, we all know what a trophy kid is. If I don't raise this trophy kid, it means I suck. And since the world is true and the world's standards are true, that's a truth about me. You see, that's what's operating in our conditioning. And so when we make the world about the world, we're believing that conditioning. When we make the world about awakening, we're transcending that conditioning. We're saying, I am not this person, and I am awakening to the realization of what I truly am. Just like when we prepare for a test, we know there's a test coming. When we prepare for awakening, we know awakening is coming. We're living from that confidence. So again, she said the first preparation was this right attitude toward life. And one of the things, the way she worded it, I'm wording it differently, but it's the same thing. But I love what she said. She said, this means stop being an escapist. She said, be willing to face life squarely and get down beneath the surface of life. The way that I would word this means use every upset as a preparation for awakening. Don't get upset at something and say, it's her fault, she did this. Because when you do that, you're bypassing on preparing for awakening. How am I preparing for awakening? By blaming you for something you did that, quote, upset me? Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. But if you do something that triggers an upset in me, and see the difference in the wording in that, right? One, in the first wording, which is world-based thinking, you did something that upset me. That's not even true. When you have that right attitude for life, you did something. You did something, but it triggered an upset in me. It triggered my conditioning. And because I am preparing to awaken, this is an opportunity. This is a blessing. Oh my God, thank you for doing that thing. Because I'm preparing to awaken. And if I'm preparing to awaken, do you know what I want? I want to find all that conditioning in me and neutralize it. And so in order to neutralize the conditioning, I need these upsets to occur. Each and every one of them is a gift. It's also a gift when you or someone else does the same thing a few years down the road and there's no upset, because then I know that conditioning has been undone, right? So the right attitude toward life, it may not go looking for upsets. It never does that. But when they come, it's grateful. And it turns within to find out what is here now that can be undone, can be forgiven, can be rested and accepted and trusted through. And I will tell you this, I know I've said this a million times, the right attitude toward life never blames. Every time you blame someone, whether it's a family member, a politician, or just a situation in the world for your discomfort or your upset, you are passing on preparing for awakening. So again, the way she says it is, the right attitude towards life means stop being an escapist. And you are an escapist when you blame someone else, when you somehow deny, project, repress, avoid. What about avoid? What about, let's just imagine for a moment that you're a manager and your job is to be the manager. That's in your job description. And there's an employee that comes in late every day and it's getting later and later. And what's really going on is you've got this fear of conflict. And so you're using your spiritual talk. Oh, well, I need to accept everything as it is to allow this employee to be late, when what's really going on, if you paid attention, was that you're not accepting this. You're scared to death to go face that person and point out it's an important part of the job that they show up on time. You're afraid to do your job. You know, so avoidance is one of the ways, avoiding these things we are to do, and even using our spiritual talk to help us avoid. You know, you have to really become tuned into what's true. You know that you can accept that an employee is late. You can accept that that's not proper behavior at work. You can accept that it's your job to talk to this person and go do it. That's true acceptance, right? So when do we use things like acceptance to avoid things that we should be facing? You know, and that's just one of many, many examples. We have so many ways to not do our spiritual work. And that's what she means by being an escapist. If we're doing our spiritual work, we're being tuned into ourselves. We're very honest about our resistances. We're very honest about our fears, right? We're very honest about our triggers, and we're facing every one of them with the right attitude, which is, I am preparing for awakening. I need to see what's going on here with me. I need to see what my guidance is about this. How do I let this go? How do I transcend this? Every single thing in my life is here to help me awaken. That's the right attitude toward life. Of course, she points out, and I've done this as well in a different way. She says you need a meaningful attitude towards the problems that life sets before you. The meaningful attitude is, this is here to help prepare me for awakening. That's the only meaningful attitude. She says, every single problem is there to contribute to your inner growth. That means every single problem is there to help you prepare for awakening. Every one of them. There's not a single problem that doesn't fit that bill. She says, as we solve problems in accordance with the highest light we have, inner growth is attained. So that even tells us how we solve problems. In other words, it's not about solving problems with the world-based mentality. It's about solving problems with inner guidance. That's different. You know, the world-based mentality, when it comes to raising children, for example, might say, well, I need to control this child. I need to ground this child. I need to, you know, blah, 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 whatever your mom did probably. And inner guidance may say, just walk away. That happened to me so many times. Just walk away. You know, when Jasmine would get mouthy with me. And I remember there were people here as we were going through that process, because we had lots of guests. The number of people that told me that I needed to take control. Like, no, that's not my guidance. You know, the guidance was more like when she mouths off at me and I try to take control, I'm playing the game with her. You know, like if you think of a game of ping pong, she hits the ball at me, I hit it back at her. Well, then she's just going to hit it back at me. Then I'm just going to hit it back at her. And the guidance to just walk away was saying, don't play. If she doesn't have anybody to play ping pong with, she'll eventually put down the paddle. And she did. Right? And she did. But you see, I didn't learn that from my mom. That's not the way my mom handled it. So, you know, guidance will resolve you to solve problems in accordance with truth, not in accordance with the world. And as we solve problems in accordance with truth, we attain inner growth. If we solve problems in accordance with the world, we just stay at that worldly vibrational level, believing the world is true and this is how you got to do things in the world. We don't go anywhere. So that's the first preparation, the right attitude toward life. The second preparation, bringing our lives into harmony with the laws that govern this universe. I learned about the laws that govern this universe when I scribed NTI Ephesians. The way we often word it here, just to keep it nice and short and sweet, is what I think, I see. What I see, I experience. What I experience, I think. That means, for example, let's say that I think my life is too busy for me to do spiritual work. I mean, heck, when I get up this morning, instead of doing my contemplation, my meditation, I got to prepare for my weekly gathering. Right? I don't have time to meditate and contemplate. Church starts at 8:15 Mountain Time. Right? When you start allowing yourself to hear those kinds of thoughts, I think I'm too busy for my spiritual practice, then actually life shows up to greet you that way. You start getting more emails, you start getting, it appears, more assignments. What really hurts, okay, this is what really hurts. Are you ready for this? If you're a busy person, you start getting more ideas. Oh my God, ideas, let's do this. Ideas, let's do this. You start creating your own busyness. There's nothing worse than your own ideas. If you could just let go of your ideas and only do what comes to you by others, you'd find you have a lot less to do. But no, you have all these great ideas that nobody asked you to do. Whew, and boy, do they keep you busy. So that's a part of the manifestation, these ideas that keep coming. And then you start feeling that sense, that stress. Oh my gosh, I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time. And it just keeps going round and round and round. That's spiritual law at work. So you have to come into harmony with the right use of the spiritual law. The right use of the spiritual law would be, okay, I see what I've done here. I see how I have created my own busyness. Now, even though it appears I'm too busy this morning to get up and contemplate and meditate, I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to trust everything is going to fall into place. I'm going to trust that if I put my spiritual work at the top of the day, and I make it sacred time, right? That everything else is going to fall into place. Everything that needs to be accomplished will be accomplished. It'll even be accomplished well. Anything that doesn't need to be accomplished will just kind of start to fall away. And guess what happens when you start living that way? You start having that experience, right? Doesn't mean you don't still have things to do, right? But everything just kind of starts fitting. There's time for everything. So, and that's only one example. I mean, we could sit here and talk about the examples. Racism, we don't fix racism by looking for racism, by thinking about racism, right? We fix racism by noticing any racist thought in my mind, whether I'm a person being a racist against another race, or whether I'm perceiving that somebody's being racist against my race, or whether I see two people out there that have nothing to do with me being racist against each other. I need to start letting go of all of my perceptions of racism. Is there another way to see this? Right? And of course, there is another way to see this. It's a bunch of people believing their thoughts. They're not racists. They're thought believers. That's a completely different way to see it. Thought believers. And then I can bring that back. Well, where am I believing my thoughts? And then I can start using all of these appearances to help remind me, hey, but I want to let go of believing my thoughts. And then my spiritual work really starts cranking. I start seeing, oh, there's a thought I just believed. Wait a minute. All this stuff, when you come into harmony with spiritual law, it changes everything. But what you have to see is, what are you thinking that you're perceiving and experiencing? And remember that it's not that the experience is real or the perceiving is real, not even the thinking is real, but the thinking is causing the perceiving and the experiencing. And you bring yourself into harmony with spiritual law by paying attention to your own believing attention. And realizing that the world is made. Everything out there is made. And you are at least a part of the maker. You know, we're all consciousness, but you are at least a part of the maker. And in fact, I'm sure you all know that Ramana Maharshi said the greatest service that you can render the world is your own self-realization, right? And it's the same as A Course in Miracles. It says a miracle worker's sole responsibility is to accept the atonement for himself. These are all pointing to the same thing. So when you are actively living your life, we have two preparations here already. With that right attitude toward life, everything in life is here to help me awaken. And then the second preparation, okay, I want to come into harmony with divine law, which means I don't want to give my believing attention to anything that I don't want to experience or that I really would prefer nobody had to experience, you know? I mean, those two preparations alone are magnificent. And it's interesting, some of the things she said about the second preparation, the bringing yourself into harmony with divine law. She said she did not confuse herself by trying to take on everything at once. I thought that was brilliant because I see a lot of people, I think, doing that. You know, I can't work on all my thoughts at the same time. So where am I working now? What's my job now? What's my category now? You know, like I really started with the what I call the I am bad belief. And I would say I worked on two thoughts for 5 years, the I am bad belief and the belief that the world was more true than truth. I worked on those two beliefs for 5 years. You know, so, and of course you have to go into guidance to see where you need to focus yourself. Don't let your egoic mind decide. But, you know, where are you working now? What is your focus now? And then be focused there. Don't confuse yourself by trying to take on everything at once. Isn't that brilliant? That simple wisdom. But whatever you are working on, when you see it, she recommends a quick relinquishment. That's how she says in the video, a quick relinquishment. Right? David Hoffmeister used to say, drop it like a hot potato that's burning your hand. Right? So whatever you are working on, as it pops up, like let's say you're working on judgment. Let's say that's your thing, judgment. Judgment pops up. Oh, there's a judgment. I'm not interested in that. Boy, letting that go now. Right? Whatever you're working on, your, you know, quick relinquishment. Or if you can't let go of it, let's go into root cause inquiry. Let's find out why I can't let go of this. What are other roots are here, you know, but you work on it then, you know, like, oh, you know, later I'll work on this. No. It's here now. I work on it now. Right. A quick relinquishment. She calls that the easy way. That's of course, because you're not dragging it out for a whole lifetime, torturing yourself. She also points out that as she lived according to the highest light she had, other light was given. Do you realize you can't live beyond the highest light you have now? So don't have these expectations. Just live to the highest light that you have right now, and other light is given. It's kind of like the old saying, do your best and your best will get better, right? Just do your best. The third preparation she talked about was finding your special place in the life pattern. You know, she says you're born with a special place in the life pattern. It's a part of who you are. But you could live your entire life and never discover it, never live it. But whatever it is, it's what you are to do that not only benefits you, it benefits the whole. And she recommends seeking in quietude to find out what that is. And she even talks about how it might start small. You know, it might start small. And in fact, if you look at everything I've accomplished, we don't have time to list it here, which is something to say. We have 11 minutes and we don't have time to list it here. Everything I've accomplished by following guidance. But you know how it started? do the course workbook. It started small, right? And I applied myself to the course workbook, applied myself to it. So if you sit down and seek your guidance, you might not receive this life plan. I didn't. You receive the part you need now. But then that leads to another part. That leads to another part. Pretty soon, you're looking back and you're saying, I can't list it all in 11 minutes. But it didn't come that way. And from the front, right? It didn't come that way. So sometimes I think when people are looking for what they are to do, they're looking for too much. If I had been looking for some big thing in the beginning, I'd have missed it too, because nothing big came right away. So you just look for what you are to do now. You guys know that. What am I to do now? What am I to do now? And then later find out where all of those little things, what they added up to. So again, don't confuse yourself by looking for some big plan. Just look for what you are to do now. But she points out that every one of us has something that we are to do. And a preparation is finding that guidance and following it. She also points out that you can learn things like spiritual law from the outside. And you guys know that. You read NTI Ephesians, the code, those types of things, the flow. You can learn that from the outside. She says you can't your guidance. There's only one way to find out what your guidance is, and that's to go within. So that alone is a part of your job, is to go within. If you don't do that, then there's no way you can discover anything else that you are to do. So we have 3 preparations so far: the right attitude toward life, bringing ourselves into harmony with the laws that govern this universe, what I think, I see, what I see, I experience, what I experience, I think, going within, finding our guidance in every moment, right? And then the last one was simplification of life. And she talked about material simplification. It is so funny because my life has not gone that way. That probably would have been my preference. I just keep getting more and more stuff materially, and it has nothing to do with me, I assure you. I'm not the gatherer, right? But I'll tell you, when I contemplated, well, how has my life been simplified? It has been simplified with 2 primary focuses, and anybody who knows me knows this is true. My life is simplified by focus on my spiritual path, which includes right now my work with Awakening Together. That's included in it. But if at some point I am guided to walk away completely, it's focus on the spiritual path, not focus on Awakening Together. You hear the difference? So focus on my spiritual path and focus on family. Those are the 2 I've been given. And I'll tell you, there are friends, and they will tell you they don't see much of me. You know why? That would be an unnecessary complication for me, to spend a lot of time with all of these friends whom I love. But if I was to make sure I saw Shauna every week, and Jacqueline every week, and Cheryl every week, and Laura every week, and whoever else comes here every week, and, okay, I got an appointment every Thursday with Shauna, do you know how much my life would get squeezed? It would squeeze. It would be a burden. She says, when you're not simplifying your life in the way that you are guided to simplify your life, it becomes a burden. And that is exactly what would happen. I have 2 focuses. That's my simplification. My spiritual path and my family. That's what God gave me. That's what guidance gave me. For me to add to that is merely going to complicate things. So how are you to simplify your spiritual life? Only you can find that. Your whole life. Only you can find out how you are to simplify. But where you aren't simplified, that's where it feels like a burden. Are you volunteering for too many things? Right? Are you supposed to volunteer here and here, but you're volunteering for too many things? Are you keeping your house too clean? I used to do that. You can actually keep your house too clean, and it's a burden. So it might be some material simplification, but it could be other types of simplification. Again, it's really following guidance is what it is. So I'll just repeat these again, and then we'll move on to our song, which is a funny song. I love it. So the 4 preparations are having the right attitude toward life. Everything in my life is here to prepare me to awaken. Bringing our lives into harmony with the laws that govern the universe. What I think, I see. What I see, I experience. What I experience, I think. The correction of that loop. Listening within for guidance. What am I to do now? That helps us to find our way in the life pattern. And also listening in with guidance. How am I to simplify my life? Those are the 4 preparations. And if we know awakening's coming, just like the test on Friday, we're going to be preparing. So the song I picked out, which you had a little preview of, it's by Patti LaBelle. It's a funny song. It's called A New Attitude. And it's a funny song because, it's in the 80s. And you can see how when we thought we were really cool in the 80s, we really looked stupid. That will be very clear in this video. But the reason I picked it out is I think seeing preparation this means I know awakening is coming. That's why I'm preparing, right? Seeing it that way, that's an incredible new attitude, I think. I am preparing because I know it's coming, right? And so that's really what this song means for me. So, Sina, if you could play the Patti LaBelle song, I'd love it. Thank you. Yeah. I don't know if you heard those words. Weren't they perfect? I mean, if you really link those words to what was said, so perfect. By the way, let me show you some of these family members. Here's a couple of them right here.
I got kicked off the couch.
That's where a lot of my job lies right there. So we are actually out of time. So if you have anything you'd like to share, you'll need to share it during the next half hour. I want to thank you all for coming, and I am releasing the mic.
You've been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.